Good evening, everyone. It's just about 6:30 or just after, and we would like to go ahead and get started. Okay, so again, welcome everyone. This is our agenda for this evening. We have some very special guests from the Code Enforcement of Lee County, and we're going to let them come up in just a couple minutes, but you'll see our overall agenda here. And just another reminder on the meeting minutes that those were emailed earlier today, so if anybody wants to look at them before we get to that point in the agenda. But our reminders, if you do have a conversation, please take it outside so that we can make sure we give that respect to our speakers, and also mute your cell phones if you will, please. And with that, we welcome Code Enforcement. Thank you so much.
Does this work? Yes. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So thank you guys for having us out tonight. We appreciate being here. For start, I'm Becky Swigert. I'm a Senior Manager with Community Development, and I'll have these guys introduce themselves. I'm going to go ahead and set it here. It'll be on. And it's all about placement. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. So again, thank you for having us tonight. I want to kind of give you a little bit of overview of our code enforcement process, give you some things that are common questions we get asked, and then kind of open the floor up to you guys for any questions. So first off, I want to start with the one thing we always get is, why do you need a name and an address when I call in a complaint? Florida statute requires it. So we have to take a name and an address. That's it, okay? Just, okay. The rules that we enforce, we do land development code, we do building ordinances, we do ordinance for nuisance accumulation, we do commercial truck parking, we do, I mean, it's a variety of things that we enforce. So it's a pretty lengthy book that we have to go through. So it can be overwhelming at times. We currently have 23 field specialists on our team that are within the unincorporated Lee County, so it's not a lot of staff for a large area. And just so you guys kind of understand, 75% of the violations are created from our own team. They're not ones that are just driven by complaints. So we do a lot of our own self-initiated cases. So when sometimes people ask, who called us in? It was just, maybe Dottie found it or someone else found it. So just to let you know. So our process when there are complaints is basically a complaint comes in or the specialists notice a violation. We'll start the investigation process. Then if there is a violation, we send a notice. We give a reasonable amount of time to abate. We try to work with people depending on what the situation is, but we want them to abate it. And then if we aren't making progress for abatement, then we actually move to a hearing process. And we will take it to hearing. And at that point, if the hearing examiner, which I think some of you are familiar with, they will decide what the fines will be and the order imposing fines will happen. And at one point, there will be a lien placed on that property. So it does, we try to avoid getting to that point where liens are recorded on properties. We want to try to get the abatement. That's the goal. Abatement is our goal, not to let something proliferate. So our frequent type of cases that we get, most of them are going to be, big one is nuisance accumulation, so that's inoperable or unlicensed vehicles. That is debris in yards. That's a buildup of just junk at a house or a property. It can be vacant property, it can be occupied, anything. We deal with a lot of that. And particularly since the hurricane, I feel like our nuisance accumulations have come up and increased, and that's been something that's been a little bit overwhelming for us. We also deal with commercial trucks, so the parking of dump trucks, semi-tractor trailers, the large commercial vehicles in residential neighborhoods. We deal with that on the regular, so we're constantly battling that. We also deal with permitted uses, which is something that I feel like has really increased for us, where people are buying agricultural or residential properties, and now they're actually running a commercial business or running an industrial business. And that's getting very difficult. People are getting good at trying to hide things from us, trying to keep things from us finding information, but Google is all of our friends at times, so yes. Some improvements that we've made to the team, we've increased our fines, and so we can now impose $1,000 a day. We can request $1,000 a day, and we are getting it, particularly on those permitted use issues that we're experiencing. So where something is, kind of gnawing at you, we're doing the $1,000 a day, because what we found is a lot of people were just incorporating a low $25, $50 a day fine into the price of doing their business. So it wasn't getting to an abatement measure. So we're really working on that. We've also been improving our outreach, like we're out here tonight. We've been doing outreach. We've been trying to get to events. We're trying to educate people. The one thing I would say is to go check out our website, because we have improved our code enforcement website. It's got a lot of great information on the process for a violation. What happens if you get a violation? Like trying to help you better understand that. So we've got a lot of good information on that website, so I would definitely encourage you all to check it out. We've also been working on more of a warning system where we're trying to give people you're trending in the wrong direction. Can you maybe clean this up and you won't get a violation? We're only giving a few days. If we do a warning, we'll be coming back to make sure. But we're trying to, help people before it becomes a much bigger problem. We're working on our partnerships. We've been increasing partnerships with solid waste, animal services, the sheriff's department. I know I am missing tons of other people. A homeless outreach program. We've been doing a lot more homeless outreach. We're trying to do as much as we can to partner with people to, help get these projects or properties compliant. So that's kind of it. I know you guys had 3 cases you wanted to talk about, and those are the only specifics we're going to talk about tonight. Otherwise, it's all generic, general questions, right? Because I might not be prepared for specifics. So the first one I'm going to talk about really quick is the Eagle's Nest. So we have been working with the property owner of Eagle's Nest trying to get that compliant. There's some hurdles that they're working through, but they are now working on the application for the consumption on premise. So we are in process with that. So I'm not sure if there was much more you wanted to know about that specific property, but that's kind of, we've been trying to work through a little bit of a lengthy process to get there. So.
Can we ask the question as you talk about each?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll try to do our best to answer.
No, I understand, that's fine. I think one of the things on that particular one was the tiki hut.
Okay.
And we didn't see that there
Chris?
was a permit.
If you could use the microphone, everybody online would be able to hear you. Thank you.
Sorry.
We're online too?
We couldn't find, and maybe we're overlooking it, but a permit for that.
So unfortunately, it was built without a permit, and that's one of the issues we have there.
Okay.
So that is,
So let's just go a step further though. What is the process? Obviously, it was unpermitted, and it's been unpermitted now for a couple of years. So are they being fined?
they're currently not being fined. They are in the process of, they've retained the engineer. They unfortunately had to remove the engineer that they had hired, and that became a very big problem. Unfortunately, they had to get rid of the other contractor. So they are in the process. They've secured their new contractor. They're working through the process. We've been meeting with her regularly, trying to get to resolution on this one.
Right, but fundamentally, out here on the island, and I've said this 100 times to this group, people generally just don't get permits and hope that they don't get caught. And then they do get caught, and for 2 years, we're inching our way towards a solution here, but it's not costing them anything to have done that. And I can give you example after example after example.
We recognize that, and I will say, code enforcement is not a speedy game. It's a long game. And particularly when it comes with unpermitted structures that require engineers and proper designs and all of that, it gets very costly and it can take time. And so that's where we try to work with people when it's those situations. We recognize that it can be,
But reality is they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And it's not costing them anything for having done that. That's I think, my point, you know?
Sure.
Just do what you're supposed to do, and if you don't do what you do, hey, go ahead and get your engineers and get your permits, but you're gonna be fined all the way along. It's gonna cost you for having not done what you want.
right, and we're getting to the point where those are the conversations we're having with them, is like, the progress isn't going the way we want, so we have that hearing process, and we've been actually discussing that, and I just met with them a week or so ago, and we expressed the concerns that we're having with it.
Yeah,
so.
and I do
I
a
hear
lot
you.
of this work here, and this is the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg on the island here.
Yep.
There are places that are running consumption on premises and, been doing it for a year and a half, and they're making tons and tons of money, and they're not being fined at all, and don't have permit after permit after permit. So, the process seems, I'm looking at the process, and the process seems like, after 65 days, there's supposed to be a hex hearing, and things are really supposed to be happening, and I'm just not convinced that they really are.
I have a procedural question. So let's say obviously you know that they didn't get a permit for that. So what happens at that point? Are they supposed to be advised that they can't use it, or what's the, I guess, what consequences, I guess, is what we're trying to understand.
That's a great question. And we have been, we've expressed to them repeatedly that they cannot use the tiki hut. It cannot be used for any functions. It's not a permitted structure.
It's used all the time,
I understand.
Yeah.
And we are not out here 24/7.
No.
And our jobs aren't 24/7. So we recognize that there are a lot of times people are doing things, particularly weekends, and we're working on that. So don't think we're not ever going to be out here in a weekend, because it might happen, or it will happen. But so yeah, we recognize it, and I don't have a good answer for you, because we've been trying to give some grace, and it's just not an easy process to get these projects sometimes compliant.
Do the fines come at the hex hearing, or do you have the ability in front of the hex hearing to levy fines?
So we make a recommendation to the hearing examiner in our current process, and she decides what that looks like. So that's not, but we do push for the higher fines in situations where it's unpermitted structure, unpermitted work, use issues. I mean, for anything that's a use related, we do push for the $1,000 a day, so.
And those hearing examiners,
Are those the same, is that the same pool that also, that we see?
There's only two.
Yeah,
so they have all of that work as well?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, understood, thank you.
yeah. So we have both of those, so.
I also wanted to add, to express your concern. Code enforcement has a certain amount of authority where we can't force anybody to do anything, we can't force anybody's hand, we can't physically stop anybody from doing work. Our method or our mechanism for compliance is daily fines, possibly a citation, involving other departments. Maybe they can help us out in some other avenue, maybe if it's something criminal or something like that.
Well, that's interesting.
It may look like to the public that we're code enforcement is not doing enough or not doing anything, but behind the scenes we do a lot of research, review, outreach. We try to get people's compliance from the get-go. We make contact, build relationships and rapport. deal with engineers, contractors, homeowners.
But
and everything.
I'm pretty sure that if you charged $100,000 a day in fine, that people wouldn't be putting up structures and, you know, doing whatever. It's just that there's no penalty after 2 years. And I'm not picking, I'm just, you know,
We get it.
that's what it is.
And
Does code enforcement publish a list of? Where's? I'm sorry. Hi, does code enforcement keep a list of outstanding violations at the time at which they were, you know, awarded or whatever? And so you get a sense of the magnitude of, and this is not to, I'm not trying to, you know, put blame on you, but it seems like, particularly on this island, there seems to be a level of, you know, wanting to not, you know, it's a lot cheaper to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I'm just wondering what the magnitude of that is.
so we have, our permitting program keeps all of the violations that we have intact, and you can see them. It's not as user-friendly for the public, so we're actually working on, we've created a story map where you can go on and see all of our nuisance accumulation cases. And so we're actually trying to now replicate that for commercial trucks and then just violations in general to help build our transparency with the public, so you can be seeing it and have more access and better understand it. So we have a list of everything. We don't publicly publish it, like it's not a list that's out there. It's just, you can go on our website and figure out what the address is, and then from there, research if there's a case. So we have our list that we follow up on and keep up on, so we have that information in-house, but not necessarily
Is
publicly.
it at all possible, just like they do in zoning and development, that you guys would publish a report every month?
So we're actually working on that. That's a great point.
And I would just ask if you would do it by Pine Island. Too many times we get lumped in with Incorporated.
Sure.
And we've got Sanibel and Boca Green.
We're actually kind of looking at it not just for area specific, but more like metrics that show you how many cases, time to abate, really start publishing that. If there's a way, we're looking at a whole new platform potentially to move our code enforcement. That's what, like, a lot more user-friendly and public interface is amazing. And so if we get there, it'll actually help with that transparency, and predictability is what we're trying to get to for both the public, the people that have the violation, and for us. So we're working on that. So
I'd like to say something.
Rhonda, come up, please.
But I don't think we're here specifically to shut down any kind of business on Pine Island, and especially our small business restaurant owners. We're gonna get nitpicky about a lot of things, and we'll start in Mount Lachey with parking on the side of the road where there's no parking signs and that type of thing.
So I think the next one, Dottie, do you want to cover the, what was it, 501 Pineland?
Yes, so there was a question, ooh, I think I'm louder just by myself without this. So 601 is a cheerleader in me, I'm sorry, I'm just loud.
There's an online audience, so they don't hear you.
I see.
Oh, hi. I'm Code Officer Dottie Reynolds, how you doing? Just for the public that's looking. The illegal dump that's on Pineland Road, the one where someone trespassed on his property, they illegally dumped. He's actually got a case going with the Sheriff's Department and everything else. We also have a case on that property, so we're not ignoring it. It's just that we are also trying to allow the property owner to be able to get his property squared away himself before we go and take care of it, and then we have to charge him for the cleanup. So since it's an illegal dump, he knows who dumped it. He knows he's got a case going with the police department. We also have a case going for him for that. So just so you guys know as a public that we're not ignoring that big old dump that's on Pineland, as soon as you turn and it's sitting right there in the agricultural property. We do have a case on that. So if the property owner is not able to get it taken care of, then it will move on to where the county ends up going to go clean it up themselves and end up charging the property owner. We are trying to give him that opportunity to get it taken care of. I mean, if someone illegally dumped on your property, you would want the same grace given that. I also know that everybody wants to talk about Jug Creek. So, you're not?
She's my pal. She's my pal. Thank you.
So you're not down with
Again,
Pineland?
again, if that was dumped.
Are you
in
Steve?
Yes, I
You
am.
did not introduce yourself, Steve.
If that stuff was if that stuff was dumped on a piece of property next to Kevin Ruane's house, it would be gone in a month. And so, you know, I'm exaggerating here, but the reality is grace is grace is grace. That violation was filed on October 23rd of 2025. And here we sit 6 months away, and we're letting the owner do his thing back and forth, and I get that. Why can't it just be cleaned up? I mean, yes, please, but I don't.
So let me give you guys an idea. We all got hit by Ian, right? Yes. Okay, so we all got devastated by Ian. We are just now caught up with our hearings from Ian. Wow. 3 years ago. We were doing, Miss Becky over here, whenever she cracks a whip, she cracks a whip. We were doing 200 cases on Monday and 200 cases on Tuesday. So we are just now getting caught up on our HEX cases prior to all this. So now we're finally, we're at a stage where we can move forward with other things. I understand your concerns. So this will be addressed with my supervisor as we go back and talk. But I do understand. And it's not, but there's a lot of properties out here in the area, and you guys are more, I encourage you guys to go on our website and file a complaint if you see a violation. I'm not going to see it all. So I encourage you guys to go and complain. Remember, you need a name and an address. But I encourage you guys to go. That way I can go look at it. If it's a violation, I'll cite it. If it's not a violation, I'll say no violation. At least I'll go look at it. Jug Creek.
Well, I have a general question.
Go for it.
As you're talking about, I'm going to back up a little bit. As you're talking about these grace periods, is there a scheduled time that you say, all right, we got the call, the initial call, 30 days later, 30 days later. Is there a window for each one, a time, a schedule for each one of these penalties? Because we're just saying grace and grace. Grace. But what does that mean? How many days, weeks? Because I'm here from Matlacha, and we have been dealing with that old fish house now for 3 years. That's a lot of grace. So what is the actual windows for every step?
So we don't have set windows or set schedule, and that's actually something we're also working on, is that putting it in that if it's gonna be, if you get a notice of violation, 60 to 90 days, you're gonna be scheduled for a hearing. And once you go to hearing and the order imposing fines is in place, we can't undo that. Like if you don't abate it by that point. And so we want to, and that's one of our goals, is creating transparency and predictability. And I'm gonna keep harping on that because you're right, it's not predictable when you don't know how long we have to wait. And so we want to establish those. It will be based on different violations. We're looking at different periods of time to abate, but 3 years is a long time. And you know, we were very sensitive after Hurricane Ian, and then when we got hit with Milton
Yes.
and Helene, like we've been sensitive, trying not to be, you know, the person that's just right there at your door. You need to clean this up today. So we've been sensitive to those items too,
But that, in reference to this particular property, it's not maintenanced. We understand that the building is dangerous and it's going to be coming down. We know that. But the property in itself is not maintenanced. We have gang graffiti. There's homeless people. We found a coyote in there once. The doors now are off the hinges and people can walk in. There is broken glass. There's been an umbrella stand there now for 2 years. And the mangroves and bushes, and I don't have to explain it to you guys. You know what it is. You drive by all the time. So it's such an eyesore for the center piece of the community. And we just are trying to understand, why can't this landowner come and give us $500 and we'll hire JMC, Gonzalez, somebody to come and clean that up? Why cannot that be?
There's been
With your push.
Well, there's been some issues for people that were affected by Hurricane Ian where they're still dealing with the insurance companies and trying to get the financials. So some people do not want to have a structure demolished if they're still working through that legal process, because there is a good bit of legal. So, I mean, we try to be sensitive to that too, but we can go back and take a look at it. I understand we may have a new owner.
It's mostly about cleanup. I'm not talking about, yes, the building needs, we know it's coming down. It's being deemed dangerous, and we know we've been following it through your site and making phone calls, so we know the status of the building. But the property itself needs maintenance.
We will take a look at that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just a quick follow-up to the dumping situation. I happen to live in Pineland, drive down that road all the time. And I'm glad to hear that something's happening. But there's actually 3 other violations that have happened right in that quarter-mile stretch of road, some of which I have reported, but I don't know that anything's ever really come of them. I mean, the most obvious one right off the bat is that there's this huge for sale sign right in the corner, right in the right-of-way, blocking view as you're going to turn left onto Stringfellow Road. I mean, it's 6 feet tall and about 12 feet long on 2 sides. It's pretty big. I don't know if there's a regulation on whether or not you can do signs that big or not, but it's pretty large. What it's related to is not this particular property it's sitting on, but right down the road on the other side of the big dump property was a piece of property that was bought by some people. I think they were going to do a coconut oil farm there. And they built a little housing village with a bunch of trailers, and there were people living in there. I don't know if that was ever permitted. And now it's just abandoned, and I don't know what's going on with those trailers. They're looking sort of dilapidated. To me, the kind of most egregious violation, which a couple of people brought to your attention, was the seemingly 7,000 or 8,000 square foot, 2-story garage building built by a local landscaping company that ostensibly I think was claimed to be for agricultural use. I don't know that storing your lawnmowers and employee housing constitutes an agricultural use on a relatively small piece of property. But there's 4, just to show this kind of scale of the activity going on Pine Island, it's unpermitted or seemingly unenforced, were those 4 things. And I can appreciate the challenge you're dealing with. I know, I happen to be an architect, I'm aware that the majority of violations seemingly are brought to your attention by neighbors or whatever, and that's fine. But when neighbors do bring them to your attention, it does appear that it takes forever for anything to be addressed. I know that the only reason that 8,000 square foot allegedly agricultural structure it was already going up. I mean, I saw the foundations going, and I called and left a message on one of the websites of yours. And it kept going for a while. They did stop for a while. I gather they went to get permits, and they said we're held up for a while, so that's positive. But again, I don't understand how, I think as Steve Eldridge pointed out, how these things just continue on without any real observation or fines. I mean, that's a big building they built there. I mean, if I were the neighbor next door, I wouldn't particularly care for having had that go up without permits. So anyway,
Sorry, I
appreciate
just wanted to
the
ask,
time.
did you say those were all submitted? Do you know?
I think, yeah, I believe this
Okay,
one
good.
certainly was, and
Okay.
the trash one was, and
I was just curious.
I think the complaint about this sign was made by somebody.
I've never, it may have been a complaint prior to me coming up to the item, but I
And
haven't.
then, so I guess one of my sort of fundamental questions, I mean, we're all not really trying to complain, but there seems to be a lot of kind of exploitation of so-called agricultural property is an agricultural use. It seems to be licensed to just do whatever you want and say it's agricultural. And so I don't know how it's defined. I mean, I know how it probably is defined, but I don't know that people are respecting that. So thank you.
I just wanted to give you guys an update on it. I know that it's everybody's worried about Jug Creek because other businesses are trying to also do the same thing as they are doing. We have taken them to hearing. The hearing examiner has granted them more time. I think the next inspection for them is June 16th. So on that compliance inspection, if they've got what they need, permits issued, whatever, then the case will be abated. If not, then it's determined by the hearing examiner whether they grant more time. If they request more time, we have to tell the hearing examiner, and it's up to the hearing examiner whether she gives more time or not. So we are working diligently on trying to, code enforcement has done what they can. We've got the violations out there. We've cited them. We've done, so now and I do know that they are working through the process to try to get the permits required. So, which Anthony could probably talk a little bit more on that one. Can I ask you a question about yours? Are you talking about on Pineland, the big tall building? It did get cited and it did get a permit. Yeah, seeing them put the rafters in blew my mind. So, yes, sir, but it did get a permit for it.
If I could just say, I personally am not opposed to any of these things. I like Jug Creek Marina thing. I like, some of these places. I just wish they had followed the proper channels or paid some penalty for not.
If everybody followed all the channels and all the rules and regulations, I would not have a job. I've got a lot of mobile homes that are being raised and carports that are being raised without permits. I went through that when I first came out to the island. So if you're one of those people that got your house raised and didn't get a permit, please go do it. Talk to your contractor who did it, get it taken care of. Because you need a permit to raise your structure. You need a permit for the carport to go up. That's 2 separate permits. So I have my card here. Anybody is welcome to call me at any time. If you're calling to give me a complaint, I'm going to refer you to our online or to call in. I won't take complaints over the phone, but I am encouraging you guys, if you see something, please call it in because I can't see it all, and I will go investigate. Like the sign that you're talking about, I will be more than happy to go investigate.
Hey, Dottie, and you make a really good point. Am I? Okay. You make a really good point, and that is, if you see something, there's a bunch of different ways to go about registering a complaint. One of them is you can get online under code enforcement and you can fill out the form. The second is you can call in. So all you have to do is call code enforcement and somebody will answer, I believe, and they'll take your actual complaint. So if you're not computer literate, you're not at a computer when you see it, and you're going to forget, call code enforcement and just do it that way.
And just to put it into perspective, a lot of folks don't know. Can you hear me now? No. Now? Okay. Just to put it into perspective, Dottie has all of Pine Island. She has assigned to Upper Captiva, Cayo Costa, Yusepa Island, and unincorporated Cape Coral. So that's a vast area for one person. And she can only see and address so much. So a lot of folks aren't aware what area we cover and what the code officer, how much area they're assigned to. Dottie's she's got a lot of areas, so she can't be everywhere at once.
Do you have an average close time or address time, from receiving a violation to where it's either resolved or some type of action? Is there any kind of an average time?
The time frame varies on the type of violation we cite for and the amount of cooperation we receive from the property owner. It takes two to tango. We need the public's help and the property owner's help in order to do our job effectively. If we don't get no help, this extends and may proliferate.
So let's say
the
an
case.
ideal situation. It's reported, you're getting the cooperation? What's a typical, time from?
It could be anywhere from 10 to 30 days if we get cooperation for something simple as trash.
But our more complicated cases, I will say, can take a year or longer. And like I said, it's a long game. It's not a quick and short game. And we are not deputized. We don't have court systems that we take. I mean, for us to even get a court injunction, which has never happened in my many years here, it would take a huge feat. So that's why it's, and a lot of times we are dealing with absent property owners. And that becomes one of our most frustrating ones because they're not here. And management companies that they have may not be taking care of the property. And so we deal with that on the regular as well.
You know, that is a good question though, Chris, and that is if you broke down, all the different areas that you cover, and essentially you had an average close time. So commercial vehicles, it takes 30 days to close, and now we've got somebody at 90, 95, 100 days. At some point the hammer has to drop.
Yep.
Right?
Agreed.
If on average it takes 35 days to make it happen.
What can we do to help you and your team? Besides being your eyes, but beyond that, what else can we possibly do?
I think some of it sometimes is education, and I want to give Anthony a few minutes, maybe Anthony, if you wouldn't mind, talking about the agritourism, because that is something that I feel like out here, in high level, I know it can get, agricultural can get really hard, and it gets very tricky. There's a lot of statutes that preempt us from being able to do things. So I kind of want to just touch on that really quick as a little bit of information. But, just talk to us, and give us some ability to work through. I mean, we have a high volume. I mean, Dottie can carry 600 cases a year. I mean, it's a lot to be, and sometimes, unfortunately, we are babysitting these cases to get through the process. So it can be a lot. So that would be my only thing, is to just communicate with us and give us that time as we work through continuing to improve ourselves and continuing to improve our website and all of our, references. We're working on updating the code. Our codes haven't been updated for code enforcement in a while, so that's another feat that we've taken on. We have a really big year this year that we've got a lot of dreams and goals that we're working on. So, Anthony, if you want to.
Oh, I hope you like wishy-washy answers, as if you haven't gotten enough already today. So agricultural uses can be pretty tricky. And if I had to boil it down to one key takeaway, it's really that they are truly a case-by-case issue. If you have a bona fide agricultural use, which means that you have an agricultural exemption on your property from the property appraiser, there's really not much that can be done from a zoning standpoint or from a building permit standpoint in terms of the improvements that are made to a piece of property. The exception to that is when you start to introduce agritourism type uses. So uses that kind of draw in the general public that are agriculturally related, but really are kind of commercial in nature, right? I mean, you think about a big one we see oftentimes is wedding venues, farm-to-table restaurants, things like that, where there are improvements on a piece of property that are dedicated to a commercial use that is tied to, but not wholly related to the agricultural use. That's where things can get a little tricky. Generally speaking, if you are building a building on an agricultural property that is intended to be used for agritourism, so it's not a farm building that we use as a wedding barn, it is a building that we are building for the purposes of generating some commercial revenue, those require the proper permits. That includes building permits, that includes potentially development orders for site improvements and engineering improvements that are required to accommodate that use. But if we're talking about an agricultural building, the only permit you need, and the only reason you need to apply for a building permit for an agricultural building is if it's in a flood zone. And our review from county staff's perspective is limited to compliance with FEMA flood hazard requirements. That's kind of the broad overview of how we treat agricultural uses. I'm gonna also just piggyback on the Jug Creek issue. Jug Creek has filed a request for a special exception for consumption on premises in conjunction with a restaurant on the property.
That case went through a round of review and it was withdrawn, and the applicant has filed a request to rezone the property to a mixed-use plan development. A lot of the reason for that is coming into compliance with today's code requirements in terms of accommodating the restaurant and accommodating the consumption on premises were not going to be achievable except through a variance process. And if you know anything about zoning entitlements, variance processes, in my opinion, having done this for not as many years as you, but some years also, variances are the most difficult cases to prove because they are required to demonstrate a hardship that is unique to a particular piece of property. And that hardship cannot have been self-created. So the benefit of the plan development process is anything that you can comply with from a code perspective. Instead of pursuing a variance, there are some exceptions, especially in Pine Island and other community plan areas throughout the county. Those variances now become deviations. And the bar to prove entitlement to a deviation is basically what they are proposing to deviate from will still protect public health, safety, and welfare at the end of the day. You still have to kind of clear a bar, but the bar is not as high. So that application was filed about a month ago. We have done one round of review. A letter went to the applicant actually yesterday. So they have some homework to do and some revisions to make to their application, but I did want to not leave you all hanging on the zoning side of things, and that's kind of where everything stands today. Any other questions?
Could I ask a question about that specific?
Sure.
So they filed their original application for an exception. They pulled that. They filed the new one. What is the difference in requirements between those two applications? I know I may be catching you off guard here.
No, that's okay. Generally speaking, so special exceptions are decided by the hearing examiner. Rezonings are decided by the Board of County Commissioners. So special exceptions are a one public hearing process before the HECS. Plan development applications for rezonings are a two-step public hearing process. So the hearing examiner serves in an advisory capacity for a request to rezone property to a plan development zoning district.
Yeah, my question really is, if I pulled the actual letter that just went out yesterday from Adam and looked at all the insufficiencies, should I expect that those insufficiencies should look like the previous application, or are there differences in requirements that would cause the insufficiencies to be completely different?
They're probably generally going to be pretty similar. I think probably the best way I can summarize it is the applicant likely used insufficiency comments from the special exception application to kind of formulate their application for rezoning. So in filing a new application, they've probably already resolved some of the issues that we've identified in the special exception application. Now, the criteria for approval of a rezoning are different than that of a special exception, right? And so they're going to need to deal with so a good example is traffic impact statement. Not required for a special exception, required for a rezoning. Some of the technical requirements, like for example, legal description, some of the buffer requirements in terms of perimeter buffers, those don't change. Where things will change is where they couldn't comply as part of a special exception, they can seek deviations from those requirements through the plan development process.
I've filed a number of complaints, and your website really needs to get updated. It is so archaic.
Thank you for that feedback, confirmation.
You want us to go through that process, make it easy for us to navigate it. Number two, unless you've changed in the past few months, we can't upload a picture or a video showing the violation, which in this day and age, folks, so that's, if it hasn't changed, I'm hoping it will. I finally got some action going through further efforts on my part, which, the violation's there, and when Mr. Diaz was here last year, he told me exactly what to do. I did that, and it's still, the violation goes on today. Switching gears a bit, just a general question. All these abandoned houses no one has done anything with since Ian. Can we send those to you and you guys take action on them now, or where are we on that?
Yeah, if you have complaints for property maintenance or potential unsafe structures, feel free to send them in.
Okay.
We might already have them on a list somewhere, but you're
Yeah,
welcome
you
to.
may, but I'll do that. The other question I have is, I called the county after Ian, because we lost everything in the hurricane. What do I need to put up another mobile home? You need a new one. Across the street from me, this guy pulls in with an used house, and he's up and running in about 2 weeks. I mean, is that something you can go after now, that, or what does it say? He's been there probably a year now.
I mean, you can give us the complaint and we can investigate it. I'm not.
Yeah, but what would you do in that case? It just,
So we require temporary permits to put a mobile home back if you're going to be rebuilding. I'm not sure if it's a like-for-like structure that you're kind of describing, or if it's a different type of structure they brought out
The house got
there.
destroyed, and he brought a used mobile home in to replace it. Instead of a new one, which is what I told we had to do to meet today's code requirements, which I agree with.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it sounds like we probably need to investigate that property.
Okay. All right. All the other abandoned houses in the subdivision, just get those to you? Because we're tired of seeing it.
Sure.
Tired of seeing them, just like all the other stuff that's sitting and it needs to get attacked.
Sure.
Okay. Any word on a website? Renewal? Rebirth?
So we're actually, we're building something right now with a company, and so we're trying to have that ready and up for November, but we might be able to do some things live sooner, but we have contracts that we have to go through, and then building this, I mean,
Okay.
from the ground up is where it's hard. But it is, what I have seen of it, and I think the staff can attest to, is it is a lot more user-friendly.
Okay.
And it's definitely gonna help with our public transparency part.
My last comment relates to the complaints I file, and eventually I have no idea what's going on there. And eventually I have to go back to your website and it says case closed. No infraction found, or they found something. Why are we not notified as the complainant? Okay.
Okay, so whenever you do a complaint, if you just put your name and your address and you do not put a phone number down. So if you're not given a phone number, I have no one to call.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
I'm not necessarily going to go knock on your door and say, listen, I didn't find a violation. I've still got 22 inspections I have to do that day.
Right.
But if you leave a number,
Okay.
I will call you back and say, listen, this is the reason why. Because normally if you're looking at any of mine, it'll say no violation found, unable to verify complaint.
Mhm.
You know, because if I'm unable to verify, I cannot and will not cite someone that I cannot prove in the court of hearing
Yeah.
that they have a violation. I wouldn't do it to you. I'm not going to do it to the person that the complaint is for. I have to be able to take my pictures. I have to be able, and most of our pictures are taken from the street. We can't go behind your house and take pictures into your backyard. That's how we get shot. So, most of our
We're not
pictures.
that bad.
No.
We're friendly
but
out here.
Listen, I've been down some of these roads around here. So, just saying. So I have been here, yes, ma'am. Most of our pictures are taken, no matter where we're at, is mainly from the road. When we're looking at a house and we see a violation, I'm taking pictures from the side, front, and the other side, and whatever I can see in the back. I'm zooming in as close as I can get to see the violation that you guys say is there. If it's not something that I can cite and clearly see, now if you are calling in a complaint and you're going to allow me access to your property, tell the person that you're calling and talk to, hey, tell the CEO to give me a call. I'll allow them access to my backyard, and then I can come in your backyard and see what you're talking about to the back of the house. So it's communication,
Yep.
and you guys all know that if you leave me a voicemail, it may take me 72 business hours to get to you, but I'll always call you back and be willing to
Right.
work with you.
You know, even with our email addresses to you, you know, a note saying, hey, we didn't find a violation. Okay, great. At least I know what I have to do the next step. So, you know, that lack of information back to the complainant is something that hopefully you'll address.
So right now, everybody, if you go online and you use our eConnect system currently now, and that's how you generate your complaint, that is also the same web link that you're going to use to go back to see what has happened. You can go back and type in that same address, and it's going to give you the history of the leak of all that's on that property. So because we have 3 business days to go check out the complaint, unless I'm on one of the islands. So we have 3 days. So within that 3 days, I'm usually pretty good. If I see, I've got a list of complaints. I just did some that aren't scheduled till next week. I took care of them today. If it's not a violation, I'm going to put in there it's not a violation. You'll go see my notes on that case.
Okay.
And all the code officers do the same thing.
All right.
So if you go on our eConnect website and you type in the address, you can see all of the history of that property in our eConnect website, whether they've got a development order, they got a permit, they got expired permits, you can see it all. We know all y'all's business. So definitely go and look at it. So if you don't leave a phone number for me to call back, I have no one to call back.
Okay.
But if y'all are looking for an answer to a complaint or question, like, you know, does this house have a violation? If you go to our eConnect website, which we have the cards that have it, you go and you type in the address, boom, you're going to see everything that we see, because that's what we have to use to investigate a property of whether it has a violation or not a violation, permit or no permit.
Okay, thank you so much.
So please, thank you.
I have a question about when there's numerous entries for the same violation. Are they connected at all?
Okay, so let's say, I know you're not going to have a violation, but let's say you do have a nuisance accumulation, okay, and you're nice and you clean it up for me and you're great and everything's good. A month after you clean it up, you do it again. If the certified mail is accepted, that next violation is called a recurring violation, which means that within 5 years you have shame on you, you've done it again. So that recurring violation, whether you abate it within the timeline, is going to be presented at the hearing examiner, okay? If it's abated, we say we're requesting a finding. That means that the third violation is a repeat, and the fines start the day the case is created. So we strongly suggest that if you have a nuisance accumulation, only do it one time. we should learn better, you know, just clean it up, keep it clean is the ideal situation, because if you get into the recur and the repeat, if you are a property owner and you own 6 properties in Lee County unincorporated, okay, and you have a repeat violation, if you own property in Lehigh, your repeat violation from Pine Island affects you in Lehigh. Okay, so that's how that works. So if you get a repeat nuisance here, and in Lehigh they're opening up a case on one of your rental properties there, it's going to be a repeat there also. And a repeat is $5,000 a day that we're asking the hearing examiner for. So.
And then on the flip side, say that there's, 20 reports of a same violation from various different people. Are those, where I'm going with that is where it's something that everybody seems to be complaining about. I would think Jug Creek would probably be an example where a lot of people have been sending in violation complaints. Are they somehow merged within your system so that you see the magnitude of complaints on a one violation?
We understand the magnitude. Like, let's say you guys keep calling about Jug Creek, about what they're doing, and it's another complaint. At this point, we've already got a violation going. It's already gone to hearing. It's already been presented, so we will write in there, I will write in there, already a violation. Please see this bio number. So that complaint is.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is somehow in your system, or maybe in the new system, where it will, so let's say I'm putting in a violation, will it say, okay, this has already been reported, but we will still add it, something to show that how many complaints have been received. I
So-
would think that would be good data for you.
We should be logging every complaint that we receive. And if we close it and just say close, duplicate, already a violation existing. But the complaint would be living there, the complaint would still be there, yes.
All right.
So you could run it and see there were 20 complaints on this one thing.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And it could be 20 of the same thing and one new type of complaint, but they would all be
Part of
logged.
that, the eConnect that we're talking about, that you go and you type in an address or a strap number, and it's going to show you every complaint, every permit, every violation for that property.
I just want to quickly follow up on the subject of parking, because I know that, I happen to really, I like Blue Dog and Yucatan and Jug Creek Saloon, as I mentioned before, Jug Creek, and the little Christmas Village and Eagle's Nest. I've all patronized them. I enjoy them. But they've either don't have permits or they're requesting relief from the parking. And I'm wondering, it seems to me parking regulations are set up to balance the patron area and the service area of a building versus the number of cars that were going to be required. Why should they get relief from parking if the zoning requirements state that's what they need for that size of a building? I mean, for example, I quickly perused the Jug Creek response letter that came out yesterday or today, and I think they're only asking for relief of 5 spaces per code, but there's way more than the number of cars parking along Tortuga, I believe it is, road than that. And certainly at Yucatan, you see them, as was mentioned before, in the no parking zone. They're stretching a quarter mile up the road on a busy day. I want these places to succeed personally, but they have to meet the requirements of the codes, as I see it.
Anthony, you want to take parking?
So, Jug Creek, if my memory serves me correctly, is relying on what's called a shared parking arrangement. Without getting too technical, basically what that means is there's kind of a mix of uses that's going to occur on a piece of property where use A happens during the day, use B happens in the evening, and so rather than parking for each individual use separately, they're saying the parking will be vacated when use A ends at the end of the day, and then use B is going to start, and then the parking will be available for use B.
Well, which I 100% agree with, but it ain't working. That's what I'm saying.
Well, but Jug Creek is not done in review, or we haven't made any decisions on that one, so just to clarify.
And we acknowledge that it's an imperfect analysis, right? So that's still in the process. We have heard the complaints about parking on Tortuga. We've heard that there are instances of the business shuttling people from other vacant properties that are being used for parking up Tortuga to the facility. So we're aware of that, and we're going to factor that into our review. Matlachaise changed a little bit as a result of a code change that happened earlier this year, or late last year. This year? Time is a human construct, I don't know. So essentially what happened was, in recognition of the fact that a lot of the properties in Matlachaise, especially the commercial businesses, they don't have the ability to accommodate on-site parking. We have applied some relaxed parking standards in the Matlachaise Historic District, so basically the main drag of Pine Island Road. And what we have done is we've allowed parking standards to be reduced ballpark between 40 and 50% over what the code requires, because of the problem with there's really nowhere to park these businesses, and so there's no real place that they end up not being commercially viable. And so in recognition of that, and in recognition of the fact that these property owners, especially the businesses, they need some help to get back on their feet. They're never going to be able to comply with today's code. We proposed to amend the code, and the Board of County Commissioners adopted that code change. Yucatan was developed and was placed into operation before that code change took place. The Blue Dog has a zoning case that's actually going to the Board of County Commissioners on April 22nd. And in there, they have asked for a parking deviation of 6 spaces based on those relaxed standards. We recognize that it's not a perfect system, but quite frankly, there's really no way for these businesses to be able to park in compliance with today's code. And a lot of times we have just like kind of long-standing uses that change occupants and suddenly become successful, and that's kind of how it all rolls out. Yucatan, we understand, we've heard many complaints about
Many.
Yucatan parking in the right of way. I think they're using some other properties in Matlacha as well to accommodate some additional parking. I mean, even just driving out here tonight, I mean, it's wall-to-wall cars.
Problem.
Yeah, and we acknowledge
That's
that
the
as
biggest
well.
concern. Somebody's going to get hit crossing there.
And we face, the unique issue that we face is we are only able to regulate and cite properties on private property, right? And so in the right of way, it's the jurisdiction of the sheriff's office. And so that's kind of where, unfortunately, we're not able to step in and deal with that. Yeah.
Thank you. By the way, what was the deal with this? Anybody know about this?
What is
Yeah, what is that?
I made a complaint. Advertisement, that's
there's-
coming up.
Sorry to interrupt again, but yesterday, for the 3 days, this is floating electronic billboard right off Matlacha on the north side, behind where the old,
Yeah.
ever-changing sign. You rotate, cycling through all kinds of things, including, ironically enough, the Jug Creek establishment. That's the picture I took. So it wasn't there today, but I'm wondering how in the world did that happen, or what is, you know. So I just bring that to your attention. It's gone, I believe, but how did that? How can
We're
that
starting
happen?
to see more of the advertisement on water and other types of creative businesses. So I would encourage, that might be an FWC violation.
Yes, correct.
That would be beyond us in terms of regulations, so.
That latest picture is the promo for an upcoming Jug Creek event down off the water by us. So when you talk about parking, all the crew that was out here when we tried to park will be at an event that's being held at Jug Creek this weekend. There is 0 parking because where Jug Creek assumed they could park, that owner has now fenced off his or her field completely. It's completely enclosed.
Fence off your property to keep a commercial business from parking in it.
Right.
This has gone too far.
And the triangle that people were being shuttled from, the owners of that piece of property have blocked off the entrances. So when one tries to navigate Bocalia, as my grandchildren used to say, it's going to be, all bets are off for this weekend. So that boat thing is going to be off East Joel's, down by us. And as someone who coordinates litter pickup for this organization on a monthly basis, one road we don't go down is Tortuga as a group, but it's an area that, because it's one street over from where I live, I try to keep track of. It's a wreck. I can't keep up with it. They need permits, damn it.
As one of those neighbors that lives 4 houses down from Jug Creek Marina on Tortuga Street, thank you, you're absolutely right. Not just this weekend will be the worst of the year probably, but anytime they have any event, they're advertising on Facebook, whatever. Unlike Maselli's parking along Pine Island Road, we have houses across the street from where they're parking on Tortuga Street. Tortuga Street's only a 1.5 lane road. The easement to make up the rest of that is the parking area, what I'm calling parking area, where everybody's parking. So when the vehicles are coming and going, they can't pass unless they drive through my yard and on my septic tank. You know, this time of the year, after the rain we've just had, it's going to be a quagmire. Now, right now, we're having the house lifted, and it's a quagmire anyway. So this year, just throw it out the window. But the rest of my neighbors, they're going to be putting up no parking signs, no trespass signs, all that kind of stuff. And this is going to be the worst, but this isn't the only time. It goes on. And like I spouted out a minute ago, it's pretty bad when your neighbors have to fence in their property to keep a commercial business out or cable off the lots. And I just talked to one of the board of directors of this fishing tournament, which we fish. It's a great fundraiser for the county, or for the area. I said, where are you parking all these people? He said, we don't know. He said, there's vacant lots off of Barrancas we're looking into. And we're not going to have 12-year-old kids in 8-seater golf carts shuttling the drunks anymore. We're not doing that. So they don't know.
So I have a question regarding what's going on down there. Is there a way that the folks here or online would be able to go to those hearings or anything like that? Or would it be write a letter so you can bring it to them so they can see really how bad the problem really is?
Can you hear me? Okay. So when the case is found sufficient, meaning we have all the information we need to undertake a substantive review and make a recommendation for staff for the hearing examiner to consider, a notice to surrounding property owners will go out. So everybody within 500 feet of the boundary of the property will receive a mailed notice. We also maintain a calendar on the county website where you can see the hearing examiner hearings. I would encourage you, if you are able, to attend those hearings and place your comments on the record. Any written correspondence, because it's a quasi-judicial hearing, so it's kind of like a court, any written correspondence is considered a third-party evidence, which is hearsay evidence, and it doesn't carry the same weight as you showing up in person and voicing your concerns. We are probably looking, if I had to ballpark a hearing date, we're probably looking at a hearing date, I would say probably August or September. They still have quite a bit of work to do. And I understand they're still operating despite the violations, but it's gonna take some time for the applicants, professionals to put together a case that they can reasonably defend before the hearing examiner. So that's what I'm expecting, but please, staff directories, I didn't bring any business cards, but I think some of you know me, so you know how to get in touch with me. Feel free to reach out. We are here to serve you and help you navigate this process because we work in it every day and we understand as citizens, you may not be familiar with it. So don't hesitate to
I
help.
understand also the 500 feet radius that the system kind of kicks out who's in that area. Who do we, if you can tell me, who do we talk to about having that space expanded? Because there's some lots that could take up in the majority of that 500 feet, and they're they're non-residents or out-of-towners, or they just own the lot, so it's not affecting them.
Sure.
How do we get that expanded?
So another option you have as citizens of the county is you can request to be added as what's called a party of interest to a zoning case. So you call us and you say, I want to be added. I know Jug Creek has a zoning petition in. I'd like to be added as a party of interest. You will also receive a notice when the notices go out. And you'll be added to, so when our staff report is published, when the hearing date is set, you'll get all that correspondence as well. Our administrative code, which kind of governs how we notice property owners, basically says if you have 10 or less properties within 500 feet, you're required to expand it out. But I suspect in this case, there's going to be more than 10 properties within 500 feet, so that requirement wouldn't kick in.
Yeah, without including one.
Yeah, I think there were 20 letters sent out.
That's not many.
Yeah, and one of them went to Captain's Harbor, so that goes to the president, and whether it gets disseminated to all homeowners is a whole nother question.
And then I have a follow-up question regarding when a code enforcement is being sent in, or to view it. You say you use your camera, you try to see from there. Do you also use LIPA's overview so you could see if buildings have been added or?
We all use LIPA. That is a code enforcement's first, and that's our first offense, is to be able to go back, hurricane disaster areas. I don't even, whenever I'm looking at your house, I go back to 2022 and I'm like, oh wow, how are you living in this house right now whenever you never got a permit and you lost your roof? So we go and we look at LIPA. It goes all the way back to 2004. So we're looking at the development of a property. So
And it only flies by like once a year?
yes,
That's-
ma'am. That's all I need.
No, twice a year.
Well, it depends on the hurricane, so let's just pray.
True.
Because it happens after, it'll do it the first 3 months of the year, and if we have a natural disaster, they'll do another flyover, just like they did during Ian. So you see, you know, I think it's March of 2022, and then you see now it's October 10th of 2022, and that's a flyover of after Ian.
Okay.
So you will see, and if you look at whenever Irma hit, it's the same thing in 2017. There's a different one there. So we look at LIPA. That is our bread and butter, because I can't tell you, if I go and drive by a house and go, oh, wow, that looks like a brand new fence. Let me see if they have a permit. If they don't have a permit, I have to prove that that permit is not an existing permit for the last 10 years. I mean, fence for the last 10 years. So we utilize LIPA for everything.
Okay, so the extra question on the LIPA thing is there's some large properties that you can't see in from the street. The abandonment of it and the dilapidated, you know, it's not seen, but it is there and it's dangerous. If a complaint was put in with all the information that you need, is that something you would follow up on if you can't see it from the road?
If I can access it. My job is to provide proof to the hearing examiner via my camera that there's a violation. Aerials are not just the only thing that we can utilize for our case. We have to have eye-to-eye contact with it in order for our case. So if it's a dilapidated home that's down the street that I can't access or I can't get to that home, because, you know, then I can't validate the violation.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for taking down that sign that was right at the triangle. That had been there a while.
You're welcome. I think it's in the truck.
I have a question about process, and perhaps you went over this before. I'm sorry if you did. When a violation occurs, what is sort of the step-by-step to getting to an actual award of a violation fine or something like that?
So the first thing is whenever a violation is created, a certified letter gets sent to the property owner of record that is with Lee County Property Appraisers. So let's say someone moved, they live up north and they moved and they never updated LIPA. Our mail is going to go to whatever is currently on LIPA's, Lee County Property Appraisers information. So we send the certified mail. If that certified mail is not accepted, then we post the notice of violation to the property. So I know you guys have seen my little stakes in the ground with the letters. So we post the notice of violation on the property. So, but if these are out-of-state people and they're not getting it out of state and they're not getting it here, then it goes through the process of the next inspection is route for review to hearing and then scheduling it for hearing. So it's like Ms. Becky said, it's a process to get a case to hearing. We would rather compliance prior to hearing. That's our goal. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So so it is the hearing examiner that imposes a fine?
Correct. So let's say you had a violation. You raised your mobile home, didn't get a permit for it, you got cited for it, so now you're in front of the hearing examiner, and she's going to charge you $285 for the hearing cost, because that's how much it costs, and then it's $250 a day if you don't get your permit. She's still going to grant you more time to get that permit. But the way it works once it gets to hearing is if you don't have that permit prior to the hearing, and now you're getting the permit after it's gone to hearing, you have to have the permit issued and finaled to avoid that daily fine. Okay. So it makes it a little harder because permitting may depend on how backed up they are and depend on if you submit the correct paperwork. That's a huge thing, is submitting the correct paperwork. If you submit the correct paperwork, maybe it goes to the review quickly. But if you don't do it correctly, it's going to get rejected and it gets to the bottom of the pile. Having a violation doesn't move your case, your permit up to the top.
Okay. Are fines attached to the property the way taxes in arrears are?
They're attached to the property owner.
If there's a lien recorded, it would be that we would recoup the cost of the lien when the property is sold.
Only when it's sold, not on an annual basis? when
Not on an
tax-
annual, unless it's a special assessment lien, we have a 12% interest rate on those. But otherwise, no, it gets, once it's sold. We are working on a process to improve those that have recorded liens to get them to pay their county debt, because it is a debt to the county.
Okay.
So,
And at the risk of beating a dead horse here, it occurred to me that if I were the owner of the Lazy Flamingo and I saw what is happening at Jug Creek, I'd be really ripped. You know, they're presumably in compliance, and yet Jug Creek is able to operate, you know, one grace after another. And look, I'm all in favor of more business. You know, particularly since Captain Conn's went out of business. But I think you got to do it the right way. And it sounds like this is a message that needs to be sent to the hearing examiner as well. I mean, you guys, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but the question is where the rubber meets the road is when, you know, the fees start to bite. So anyway, thank you.
Agree.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you all coming here this evening and answering all of our questions, and we hope to see you again. Maybe in several months we can have you back. Thank you.
thank you guys. Thank you.
We're going to continue with the meeting here. Steve, if you want to take on the treasurer report. Thank you.
Before everybody leaves tonight, they left me with, I'm guessing it's the code enforcement, Lee County little thing. So a bunch of numbers and people to call and all of that. So make sure everybody gets one before you go. So let me just try and do this real quick. I guess, I don't know who can see me or who can't. But at any rate, so this is for the month of March 31st ending. We had $263 worth of income. We had $170 worth of expense. We renewed our safe deposit box rental, and everybody's familiar with the fact that we pay the church $100 every month to use their facility. So we had $93 worth of net income. Oh, can I do it? Okay. No big deal. There we go. Okay. So year to date, through March 31st, since the beginning of the year, $1,755 worth of income and $929 worth of total expenses. Net income for the first quarter was $826. Nothing really out of the ordinary. The big expense in the first quarter was constant contact, and we used that to keep track or to keep up with the membership and the Friends of the GPICA as well. Final page, we have $15,000, almost $16,000 in essentially in cash balances. I think I've talked for a couple of months. Once we got the laddered portfolio figured out, we're going to go ahead and talk about drawing that balance down, so that'll be on our next board agenda to take that $16,000 down to probably a much smaller number. I'd say maybe I'd recommend in half, given the fact that if you can see, and maybe you can't see, but we literally have CDs and treasury bills maturing now, essentially at least $5,000 every month between now and October. And then we have one in November, and that was the whole plan, was to get it so that we had money maturing every month, so that ultimately we could go ahead and take down the balance that we have in our money market accounts and earn some more interest on them. So that's the treasurer's report, unless somebody has any questions. Yeah, I do. Thank you. So, and this may be hard to read. It might actually be easier if you turned around and you read it. It's behind you. And essentially, this is the second year we've employed Bob Peters, who's an accountant, and Bob did the review of our financials for 2025 and provided us with this letter. And I think the gist of the letter is essentially that he said he'd reviewed the financial statements, bank statements, checks, certificates of deposit, and treasury bills, and he saw no activity that appears to be unreasonable, unusual, or indicate fraud. So that's a good thing. And the second thing that I asked him to do, you might remember that in November of last year, we actually wrote an investment policy because we have $100,000 worth of cash that I'm and the board's responsible for investing, and so I wrote an investment policy. And what I asked him to do was to review all of the investments and to make sure that they were in compliance with the investment policy that I wrote. I essentially manage the money. I wrote the policy, so I kind of know that those two ought to be in concert with each other, but he was able to verify that. So I think you should have some comfort that, you know, there's nothing untoward going on in terms of the finances. Did I? Okay, I'm sorry. Untoward going on in terms of the financials. We're through 2025 now, so that's good. And that our investments are in compliance with the investment policy, so we should feel good about that as well. Thank you. Yeah.
In
go
there,
ahead.
it said something about dual authorization. What is that? What is
Yeah,
that?
so essentially what he did was he went a step further and basically said, look, as an accountant, you know, I'm always looking for checks and balances. And essentially what he said was, you know, you're doing all the investing, and he said maybe there ought to be sort of a check to make sure that when you do a transaction over a certain level, that you get somebody else's approval to do that. And I think that makes sense, and I think that'll be another thing that we'll talk to the board about in the next week when we all get together and decide whether we want to do that. He basically said, why don't you come up with a threshold? Then he sort of waffled a bit, and he said, given the number of transactions you're doing, maybe it's not going to be too much to just ask somebody else. But how we set that up, I don't know, whether it's a telephone call. I really don't want to be held down to intermeeting, you know, between board meetings to have to call a board meeting to do it. Ultimately, you know, maybe we could send an email and have them come back that way, but we'll talk about that, so. Then next.
Yes, the meeting minutes went out in email this morning, so.
Okay, and
Unless anybody has questions, we just need one.
Ellen sent me a couple of small changes, so I'll make sure that we saw those. Anybody opposed to approving those minutes? That was February and March, right? Anybody opposed? No. Okay. There we go. Oh, yeah.
If we could make a formal, make it a procedure.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. No one opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Did you get my, oh, are they? I didn't realize. I saw a previous one. So I'm just going to try and update you on the zoning and development, and I have a whole spin on Jug Creek, but they told you enough. So a couple of things that I wanted to tell you about. Bokeelia Point, the only thing that I wanted to show here, and I hate taking information from the Pine Island Prospect on Facebook, but they actually have a picture of what the houses are supposed to look like. I don't know if it's true or it's not true or it's not, but yeah. So I don't know, huh? Yeah, I don't know, but that's, somebody came on there and said that. So I just put it there. What we know is, how many? It's 48 unit mobile home park. And it's going to be elevated. Those don't exactly look like mobile homes to me, but it is what it is. And that just sort of keeps progressing. If you haven't been down there recently, you should probably take a drive down there. What's that?
It's a lot of dirt.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of dirt.
Yeah, get washed away next hurricane. Captain Conn's. Yeah, right in that area there. What am I pointing at? What's not happening here? Deb, can you move this? Oh, just not moving. Oh, it may have just needed to catch up. Okay. So the next one is Jug Creek Special Exception. The reality is Anthony told you that they had filed a special exception to do stuff on what's zoned industrial and marina, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or marine industrial, excuse me. And the insufficiency letters got so long that Jug Creek could not answer the question satisfactorily, so they finally pulled that application. And 30 days ago, just like Anthony said, they filed another application for a thing called MPD, a multi-mixed-use plan development. And so the big takeaway for me and for us sitting here is that, you know, it was all going to stop with the hearing examiner. Now they get to go to the Board of County Commissioners as the end-all be-all for the whole thing. So it does sound like a plan to me. And I guess I would say we've seen the first insufficiency letter. You saw me talking to Anthony a little bit about it. I'm going to take the old application insufficiency letter and the current one, and I'm going to compare the two of them and see where they're different and whether they, you know, let them off the hook or didn't go down some avenues that they, you know, they went down with the special exception. So still remains to be seen. I will say this, that, you know, for whatever reason, if you're just a gadfly like I am, there is a HEX hearing on one of their violations on April 20th at 9:30 in downtown Fort Myers, and I'm going. Just to try and understand what's going on. I actually have friends that are selling their house in Captain's Harbor because they can't take the music. They just gave up. They tried to fight it, figured they couldn't, and they put their house on the market, which is sad. So.
They're not the only ones, though.
Yeah, and I get that. I get that. I can hear, you know, and I never said that, but, you know, I live about 1.25 miles away, and I can hear them. And I'm thinking, you know, what's Ellen Ballard thinking about that right about now when I hear it?
I was just
consumption on premises.
Could they eventually, under that sort of description, do housing at some point in the future, if that's what they were up to?
Well, yeah, I don't think so either, but I will tell you this, that the MFD, if that's MPD, I think is the same zoning that the Betsy Parkway came in for, mixed use. And so, you know, they're doing industrial and storage at that property. I think this comes under the same thing, but, you know, they're selling, you know, they've got a retail store there, they've got a fish market there, they've got a bar there, they're trying to get consumption on premises, they've got a restaurant there, so.
They're not trying. They
Yeah.
are, and they're trying to get permission. Don't forget the porta potties.
Right, exactly. So the reality is they've just chosen a different avenue of mixed use, essentially. They got a bunch of uses for that property. From a zoning standpoint, Castaways Bar and Grill, if you were here several months ago, the people came in from, that are spearheading this, they're proceeding, they've filed an application now. I'm gonna step out of the camera here for just a second to point to you. You know, the blue dog is right about here, if I'm not mistaken. The easiest way to identify this site is that's where Manhattan kept all of their vehicles. Right, and if you have been by there, Manhattan's pretty much cleared that piece of property now. So I suspect these guys will go on. I think I just saw that they asked for a 365-day extension. Don't quite know what that means, but I think there's some, what do they call it? There's some issues with some mangroves that were cut and things like that that they're having to deal with.
They also decided, because I'm acquainted with one of the consultants.
Yeah.
They're going to rip down the existing building.
Next door to it.
No, they're going to take down the old kayak building.
Oh.
Build a new building for the restaurant.
Okay, yeah. So Jonathan said that they were going to rip down the old kayak building. Upper Captiva Carriage Club, this was approved with changes. This started a long time ago. I think we followed this. This is on Maria Drive, if I'm not mistaken. The reality is a good friend told me when I was sort of feeling low about trying to stop this, you know, the train that seems to be coming through Pine Island. He basically said, you're not going to stop development. What you need to work on is trying to make the projects as best you possibly can. And I do think that this project, and I sat through this, that's maybe my first meeting for the Greater Pine Island Civic Association, where they presented, and what this is much smaller on scale and much better done than the original plan that we saw. And so when I look at this, I say, you know, whether it was us, but there were a lot of people that were complaining. The citizens, I do think, drove to a better process there.
If real quick on this, so this is a zoning change to commercial. And the point that we had been making in all the different meetings is it's so much easier and more lucrative to sell commercial property. Did you see what's happening right over here?
Yeah.
Point exactly what we've been saying. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
They're selling it. They got the rezoning done to commercial, and now they're selling it. They're not putting up the development that they requested and were approved for.
Was this to the storage?
Yes.
No.
Yes, it is.
Wrong properties.
No, it isn't. The sign is there. That's the one that did not do the public hearing. They did it the same day they had it in the paper.
Okay, we need to look at that, because
Are you talking about behind public?
no. Right across from John R. Woods. Right next to the water plant. Nothing, they're offering it up.
They're going to put storage there, or outdoor storage.
Yeah, outdoor storage. Okay, so Bokeelia Tower, I can spend another 2 hours on this since I've been leading this effort. We had our HEX hearing on March 11th. We're just in the process now of waiting for the HEX or hearing examiner's recommendation. And that is probably the middle to the latter half of this month. It probably should be out. The county planner made a recommendation to the hearing examiner that said approve, 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 approve. And we'll see what the hearing examiner says. It's not a done deal after that, as this is one of the few areas, a cell phone tower, where there can actually be an appeal to the Board of County Commissioners. So if the public loses, we'll probably appeal to the county commissioners. If the Skyway Towers company loses, they'll probably appeal too. So, you know, we're going on from there. I think the big hindrance for us would be if the county planner said approve and the HEX hearing, you know, recommends approval too, then you've got the Board of County Commissioners going against all their employees, and that you know, that just doesn't look very good, I don't think. But so we'll think about that. That's where we are on that issue. Yeah.
What was sort of the tenure of that hearing? You attended that?
Yeah, it was 7.5 hours. Yeah. And here's what I'll tell you. I mean, this is my personal opinion, everybody. And I'll tell you how the hearing examination or the hearing goes. And I know that some of us have attended them before. The applicant comes in and they said, this is what we want to do. And they spent 20 or 30 minutes doing that. And then the county planner comes up and he says, for all of these reasons in this particular case, I say approve, approve, approve. So approve the special exception, approve the 3 variances. Then the public gets to come up and the public gets to talk. And I think we had 12 or 13 people talk, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, we grounded it the best we possibly could in the land development code, because when you go in there, it's quasi-judicial. And you can't go in there and just say it because I think that, you know, I don't like it because they're going to paint it red. You know, it's got to be based on the land development code, and we did a good job. So we finished up, and then the applicant gets to come back and rebut everything we said. And then the county planner gets to come back and rebut everything we said. And then it's closed. So the public does not get to participate after they've had their one discussion. Now, somebody said to me, well, yeah, if we did that, then, you know, we'd add another 4 or 5 hours to this thing. And I said, let the public respond back in writing. You don't have to do it all public. Just leave it. And in fact, the hearing examiner left the hearing open for 2 weeks for 2 specific issues she asked of the applicant. Answer these 2 questions, and then when I get those responses from you, I'll close it. Well, she could have just left it open to everybody, let them answer those 2 questions, and let the public write back, because once they got to their part where they could rebut, they could say anything they want that, you know, and they did. And they did, because essentially, and this will land like a thud right here, you know, we had them come in, they did a public information session, we had a vote, 110 people voted, 1 person voted, no, it was 4 people voted for it, and 106 voted against it. And the county planner stood up and said, well, I was at that meeting, and all I heard was a whole bunch of people want cell phone coverage.
Wow. And we didn't have a chance to.
Yeah, and we couldn't rebut it. Couldn't rebut it. Yeah, huh? Oh, yeah, yeah. So the reality is it's all in favor of the applicant. And so we'll see where that goes. We gave it our best shot. Betsy Parkway.
Yeah, did anybody go to that one on the 25th?
No, And so, as it says there was a hearing on the 25th. Just like us, they're 2 weeks behind the Bokeelia Tower issue. I think this was heard by the other hearing examiner, if I'm not mistaken, but I presume it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks before that opinion comes out as well. Blue Dog Restaurant got approved, subject to multiple conditions and multiple deviations. Parking being, sort of the greatest deviation of them all. But that's moving on. And so that's the update.
Any questions for Steve on any of that? Thanks. I know that takes a lot of effort and time, and it's very much appreciated. Okay, we'll move along quickly. Just a few things. Ellen, I'm sorry we didn't get a communication out for last week for the road, but here's for May.
For last week.
That's what I said,
Yeah.
And then you had a few things you wanted to mention tonight, didn't you? Yeah, please go ahead.
Well, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. Thank you. And the program on the left is this coming Saturday. This is something that the Calusa Land Trust has been working on with other programs for a full year. And I just found out 2 weeks ago that the Bobby Holloway fishing tournament is the same morning. So, yeah. So for those of you that have children in your neighborhood or any family visiting, this will be a really fun activity this coming Saturday morning at Weigert Barren Preserve, which is east end of Barrancas. It's 9 to 12.
Is that only for children?
No.
It looked really interesting
to
me.
The whole family can come. In fact, my daughter and her two are flying from Michigan to come. So, yeah. This is a story walk. We have approval from the author. We've had other programs that have supported this to get to teach the community about gopher tortoises, et cetera. The next thing I just wanted to share with you is the Friends of Pine Island Library are giving a big update on their oral history project that they've been conducting with residents of Pine Island over maybe more than a year now. That will be at the library tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You don't have to call, just go. And last but not least, my husband could not be here because he's at another meeting. Saturday, April 25th, from 10 to 3 is the Lee County Pioneer Picnic. If you lived here 50 years ago, not looking around anybody, or have lived here for 50 years, any place in Lee County, this is at the Lee Civic Center off Old Bayshore Road in the Tenley Pavilion. It's a lunch that costs $10. You don't need to reserve in advance. It's barbecue, pork and chicken and all the fixing. You don't have to pay any dues. You just go and talk with neighbors that you might have met a long time ago. So it's kind of a fun event. And he's on the board of that, but of course. Thank
you very much. Appreciate that. There's a few things for Matt Lachey. There's a road cleanup on the 25th. This next one I thought was something that maybe we might want to focus in on a little bit, the Wink Listens. I don't know how effective that is. I never really participated in that, but I'm encouraged to see that they're actually coming this way. So that will be on April 29th. And then we already talked about the Blue Dog parking. That you already talked about the story. And then just a reminder for anybody who is interested in helping Lisa, there's another benefit for her on the 15th.
One more thing. For those of you who are not going to the Gopher Tortoise event, Calusa Waterkeeper also is hosting a Dr. David Davis at FSW talking about algae toxins and brain health. So that's also on Saturday morning coming up this week. And you can find out more about it on the Calusa Waterkeeper website.
Thank you. This is just another reminder for anybody who needs that. And in closing, actually, yes. We have our distinguished guest speaker next month, Mr. Ballard, who will be anxious to hear some updates. And then in June, the FWC. So that will be good for this topic. We could even talk about that with that advertising that they talked about. And a reminder that in July there will not be a meeting. So
I have a quick
before,
question.
sorry?
I have a quick question.
Oh, go.
Is there road cleanup tomorrow?
No.
It was last week.
It was last week. Oh. Yeah, that's why it's not on there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're done. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Public announcement?
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
At Flamingo Bay on Mondays from 1 to 5, Dr. Becky is there. She's an acupuncturist, and come see her. She's awesome.
Does she
She's
work
been there
wonders?
since
Flamingo
November
Bay.
after Ian, and it's free. And you just sit there and tell her what you need to have worked on, whether it's knees or your balance or whatever, and she's wonderful. She's
Great.
a doctor, medical doctor, acupuncturist, and chiropractor, holistic healer, and she works with a group called Acupuncturists Without Borders, similar to Doctors Without Borders. So every Monday at the clubhouse, 1 to 5.
Monday,
So-
1 to 5
Yeah,
at
and
Flamingo
it's
Bay.
freebie.
Thank you very much. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Motion? Any opposed? Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Do you know any more?